Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Go Giver Influencers Facebook Live show. This episode is titled, You've Been Framed, and so have I. Because the theme is going to be framing, even though it will probably, especially with my special guest today, it will kind of morph off onto a bunch of different topics. But one of the biggest aspects of influence is being able to set a proper frame. What is a frame? Well, a frame by definition is the foundation from which everything else takes place. So when the proper frame is set, or you've been able to reset maybe a negative frame that someone else came in with, you're really 80% of the way there to a mutually beneficial resolution. And I often tell a story, and I feel like I've told it 20 times this week because I've been probably interviewed 20 times about the new book, and I know John has been doing a lot of interviews as well. So if you've heard this, please forgive me, but I think it's just the best example of a perfect frame that I have ever seen. And I talk about the time I was in a Dunkin' Donuts restaurant and having coffee, reading a book, and there was this little boy, probably 2.5 years old, running around the restaurant, and his parents called him over to the table. And as he started to walk over, he slipped, he fell on the floor, and he didn't hurt himself, you could tell, but you could also tell he was shocked, he was surprised. That wasn't supposed to happen. So first thing he did, of course, was he looked at his parents, the two people he trusts most in the world, to get their interpretation of the event. Events happen. Things happen in life. It's typically how we respond or react to them that makes all the difference. And so the parents, I really think, had they gotten upset, had they panicked, I think he would have started to cry. But the mom and dad handled it just beautifully. And what they did is they walked over calmly, and they had smiles on their faces. In fact, they applauded, and they said, "Oh, that looks like so much fun. What a great trick." And immediately the little boy began to laugh. What the parents did is they set a productive frame from which he could operate. We can do the same whenever we are about to have an interpersonal transaction with anyone. It can be as simple as an inside-out smile when we shake their hand and give them proper eye contact to let them know that we're glad to see them, that we're looking forward to this. It could be that we're in a group and someone comes in the room and you know they kind of like to join, but they don't know if they're welcome. So we kind of open up our body language a little bit so that they know they're welcome. We're giving them a frame of welcome. It could be that a prospective customer who we're about to present to, she's a little bit defensive, and maybe she is kind of used to salespeople being pushy, heaven forbid, and that she feels uptight about it. So what we do is we kind of reset this frame by simply saying, Mary, while we've been able to help a lot of people with this product, whether or not it's the right answer for you, we simply can't know without exploring deeper and determining whether it meets your needs. So please know our discussion is really for both of us to discover that. And if it does, great. If not, that's okay too. And so now we've created the frame where we're two allies looking for the best solution for her, as opposed to prospect against the salesperson and it being a battle. So, when we can set a frame, what we're doing, and one of my favorite quotes about this is ironically enough from the, I think, 5th century before the Common Era military classic, The Art of War, credited to military strategist Sun Tzu, where he said the ultimate of in knowledge and strategy is to make conflict altogether unnecessary. And that's really what we want to do. Now, sometimes conflict is necessary. And when it's a legitimate conflict, we need to be able to handle it tactfully, diplomatically, all the ways that we need to do that. But when we can keep conflict from ever taking form, unnecessary conflict. Now that's the ultimate in, strategy and knowledge. That is what setting a frame can do. And with that, I would like to welcome my great friend and brother, the person I humbly call the greatest writer on the face of this earth. And again, I only say Earth because we really don't know who else is out there on these other planets, and I hate to be presumptuous. So, John David Mann, welcome, my friend.
Hello, good sir. How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Thank you. Now, I'm going to do my newfound trick where I try to actually look to see who's commenting, because I know there's going to be plenty of questions for you, not for me, for you. And I want to be able to look down and be able to see. I do see Hill McKinjay. I hope I pronounced that right, Hill. If I didn't, I apologize. But Hill wrote, as she was talking about the story at Dunkin' Donuts, and she wrote, "That works every time," and then hashtag mom of 4 kids. I love that. John, I mean, you've got kids. Is that true? That frame, what happened at Dunkin' Donuts? Is that,
Yeah, it's great. I love it. That's a great example. Great example. Teachers can do that. Parents can do that. Yeah, but you can do that in basically any kind of situation, really. Yeah.
Hill wrote, nearly works every time. Belinda Proyne wrote, "Hi, John and Bob. Hi, Bob and John. Been looking forward to this." Hi, Belinda. She's great. Zach Miller. Hello, Bob and John, enjoying the book so far. Oh, thank you, Zach. And then I think I also saw my great friend, but she's not here anymore on this, so I must be doing something wrong. But Shannon Farabee, who's awesome, and she is here too.
And who wrote one of our very first reader comments on the book. Thank you, Shannon.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. She did. Thank you, Shannon. That was wonderful. She's a great leader herself. Talk about someone who's an influencer. My goodness gracious. She actually came into a direct selling business, never having been in sales, never having been in direct sales, only, liking the product and having nobody there to teach her. She had to kind of learn herself. So she just read books and she listened to people, and she is one of the wisest people I know. She's amazing. She actually happens to be one of our certified Go-Giver speakers, but I mean, and through that, I've gotten to know her, and my goodness, she is just so impressive. Let's see. Okay. So John, we got the book out this week, The Go-Giver Influencer, and framing was, secret number 3.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about framing? We talked a lot about that, and the judge, one of the characters, Judge Celia Henshaw, talked about it. That she said, there's a frame is always set one way or another, and it really is, isn't it?
It really is. First, let me ask you: am I showing on this broadcast, or am I just voicing?
No,
my
no,
face.
Oh, you know what? Wait a second.
Have you shared screen?
Wait a second. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, you're right there. In all your handsome splendor,
co-authorial glory.
Huh?
Yeah, well, I love this topic of framing. It's so great because it's, in screenwriting, which I have said to many people in many interviews, when they ask about my career path, I say, Bob Burg destroyed my career. It always gets a laugh, by the way. And then I go on to explain, because I was heading out to Hollywood to be a screenwriter. That was my plan. When my friend Bob came along and said, I'd like to write this book with you. As it turned out, I often say the universe knows you better than you know yourself. Well, Bob apparently knew my career potential better than I knew it myself, because what I really was meant to do was write books. And I discovered that when Bob asked me to help with The Go-Giver over 10 years ago. Can you believe it's been 10 years?
Wow.
So in screenwriting, they have this thing called subtext. And subtext is, you have dialogue, which is what the people are saying. And there's subtext, which is what's really going on. It's what's really going on that's unsaid. And subtext is very much related to this business of frame. It's so key in determining the quality of human interaction. In the wild, animals have 2 common ways of setting a frame when they first encounter each other. They may show their teeth. They may show their belly.
Right.
Now, if they show their teeth, what they're saying is, get ready, because I'm ready to fight. They're not smiling. They're like, "Argh." Showing their teeth means I am tough and I can hurt you and I will hurt you. Mm-hmm. Showing their belly is saying, you'll get no fight here. You can trust me because I'm trusting you. It's showing their vulnerability, showing their understanding.
Is that like when humans shake hands? I wonder if that's how that started. It's like no weapons.
Yeah, exactly. It's like showing that your hands are empty. Is how handshake started. Showing. So it's the same thing. Human really is. Human beings, when we're not, typically when I first encounter a new person, I don't fall on the floor and show my belly. Although I don't know, it might be fun, but that's not what I do. But humans are different, but it's the same concept. When we show our teeth, it means friendship. We smile. That's what our teeth means. But let me just give two examples that to me are like the dog's teeth or belly. You're checking in at a hotel. You're going to be at a meeting this evening. You got there late. You're checking in. You've got 50 minutes to get into your room, get changed, and be down in the meeting room. You walk up to the desk, and the clerk says, I'm so sorry, I don't see your reservation here. Must have been some mistake. And I said, well, I got to get my room. Well, it's going to take us a while to get a room clear. Okay, now there are two ways to go here. I can bare my teeth, which I can say, do you realize I need to be in my meeting in 50 minutes? That's factually true, but what I've just done is set a frame, which is basically I'm making my problem their problem. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, I'm ready to fight you over this.
Yeah.
Here's another way to go. I could say, you guys must be going crazy. It is so busy right now. I can only imagine you're going out of your mind. I have just taken on their problem and not made it mine, but acknowledged it. Mm-hmm. I've just showed an underbelly. It's the opposite approach. Guess which one is going to create a more productive conversation?
Right. That's a frame that creates benevolence between both.
It's subtext. The subtext, I haven't said it in words, right. But the subtext is, I feel for you, I can see your situation, and I am prepared to be a pleasant individual and not give you a hard time. And notice what I haven't done is said, well, then I'll just forget about my room. I haven't said that at all. I'm not creating a position of weakness. I'm not giving up. I'm just creating a frame for a productive, decent human interaction.
Yeah. I love that. Here's another thing we need to be able to do as influencers, and that is recognize when a negative frame is being set on us. And that might be when someone gives us a choice of two options and asks us to take one or the other. When neither of them is an option we want to take.
Right.
But it's human nature to buy into that, right? And to, in a sense, we talk about this, I think, in Go Givers Sell More, when someone says, when you grow up, do you want to be wealthy or happy, right? Yeah, right. Well, of course, with that presuppose, that's what you call the treacherous dichotomy. Right. The false dilemma, the unnecessary use of the word or, right? There's no reason for it. It's an and. No, not wealthy or happy, wealthy and happy, right? That third choice.
How about both? Yeah.
Right. How about both? And we can do that anytime we're given two choices. What I suggest that we want to do is, if we don't feel quite right about either of them, let's check our premises or check the premise and ask, well, let's see, are those two choices the only choices I actually have? Or does that person want me to think that those two choices are the only two choices I have?
Yeah.
We ask, could there be a third choice?
And in conversation, the phrase, let me take a step back for a sec, is never a bad option.
Right. Yeah. And so, so part of influence is, we never want to manipulate another person, and we also never want to be manipulated ourselves.
Right.
And so that's important. So always make sure you don't get trapped in someone else's negative frame, because it's more in their interest than it is in your interest. You want it always to be both interests.
Yeah. That's a great point. That, funny, I was in an interview earlier today, and the person was asking about how to be a go-giver and still reconcile that with being economically successful in your entrepreneurial business, and blah, blah. And there was again, the assumption that you and I have seen so many times, right, that being a go-giver means being nice and basically, giving in to everybody else's demands.
Right, exactly.
And I had to make the point again that it's true in all the Go-Giver books that applying those principles is never to imply weakness, naivete. We are not, when we expect the best, we're not being naive. My dad was one of the kindest, gentlest people I've ever known, and he always expected the best in people. It would be very easy for others to assume that he was naive, and many did. But he was tough as nails on the inside. He was really clear on what he would give on and what he wouldn't, where the boundaries were. So yes, being a go-giver in any situation.
Right. A go-giver simply meaning you're focused on providing value to others. There's nothing about that says that you're supposed to be a doormat or self-sacrificial or a martyr. Nothing.
Exactly.
But I think it's natural that somebody hears the term go-giver, especially if they haven't read any of the books, and think, well, you're just, giving yourself away and you're not. No, that's not it at all.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you.
Well, I was going to say that people say, well, can you be too nice? No, you can't be too nice. What they mean is, can you be taken advantage of for being nice? And my answer is, if you're nice and you find yourself being taken advantage of consistently, it's not because you're too nice. It's not because you're nice. It's because you're doing things in such a way that you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of.
And by the way, you're not being very nice to yourself.
Right, you're not exactly. So yeah.
I mean, you count too.
Let me look. Hill, who by the way said that I did not pronounce the name correctly, so you may have to write that phonetically for me in here. But wrote creation of win-win plus win situations. Everybody happy? Absolutely. Everyone should come away ahead in any exchange between one or between, well, couldn't be between one, between two or more people. We should always be advancing life, for as well as Waddles called it, advancing life for everyone. Sure, I love that.
I'll say a quick word on that. One of the things that Bob and I like to do, that we like to do in our stories, and we did it certainly in The Influencer, is that at the end, there's a dilemma, there's a challenge, a problem, and in the end, there's a solution that they arrive at, which is something that nobody saw coming. It's different. And to me, that is often the key to the win-win plus win, which your friend mentioned, which is, it isn't an either or. It is, if we take a step back and open ourselves to possibility here, there's often a new solution that nobody saw coming, which actually produces a more positive outcome for everybody involved. Mm-hmm. The reason we do that in stories is that happens in real life. It happens all the time. It's not, Pollyanna. It's
right.
Real. It's creativity. It's human ingenuity.
Yeah. In fact, when after the Go-Giver came out, when we wrote Go-Givers Sell More, which is sort of an application of the 5 laws, how many stories did we include of people who either utilized one or more of the 5 laws after reading the book, or more than that, were always doing it? You take Arlen Sorensen,
right,
formerly of HTG and of the I'm trying to think of the name of the peer groups. Here is a guy, and first, this is a majorly successful human being, financially as well as in all other ways. Mm-hmm. Wow. The lives he has touched and the people he's put together and the things he has done. He is the walking embodiment. And I love, there's certain people that's not a walking embodiment of a go-giver is not something that's just one or two people. There's many people who do embody that. And he happens to be one of them. Yeah. But here's a guy who just, and we included his story in the book. But I did a program for one of his groups actually a while back, and all they could talk about is what an amazing mentor he has been.
Yeah.
And he's created mentors upon mentors upon mentors, and he's got all these people throughout the world working together to help build each other's business and create a bigger pie for everyone.
Yeah. And I just want to amplify what you're saying about Arlen, in that, when we talk about the kinds of things that Arlen has done with people and his colleagues have done and his cohorts have done, it's not just by being nice. I mean, often in these situations, they're dealing with IT groups and with very technical situations. And often there's actually, a lot of technical knowledge and intricate ingenuity being applied in arriving at solutions. And it kind of goes back to framing for me, is that one of the goals of positive framing isn't just to have a nicer conversation. isn't just to avoid getting in an argument. It isn't just to make it pleasant. It is that when you create a positive frame in a potentially negative situation, right, that could turn into a pitched battle, when you create a positive frame, you also unleash powers of creativity. You unleash the possibility of solutions that neither one saw. I mean, here I am at the desk, and this guy is saying there's no room ready, and I need a room. I don't see a solution, but you know what? There's a solution. There will be a solution. I can't know what it is yet, but I do know that if I create a positive frame, it's going to open rather than close. You can have a closing or an opening. And if you open that conversation up, you know, in 30, 40, 80, 90 seconds, that desk clerk is going to say, you know, I think we got a cancellation over here, or whatever the solution is. It comes up.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I think of a person who years before Kathy Tajanel, a wonderful business partner, friend, she was trying to get me to go to a Mac, okay? And I was on a PC. And I'm not saying anything bad about a PC. I'm just saying that they tend to need a lot of maintenance. And like a lot. Like a huge amount. Like,
how much, Bob?
And so I kept this guy employed, let's say, who just his business was basically fixing PCs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he was over every week fixing mine. I mean, it was really, and he used to, and this goes back to framing. I would ask him to fix something or do something. And his default response, and he was, by the way, a great guy, but his default response was always, no, this can't be done. That was just his default response. Yeah. And I remember at first I would buy into that frame, and I was nervous about paying, you know, because it was usually at a time I had to get, and I'd say, no, come on, you know you can do it. You've done this before. And we'd go back, no, it can't be done. Yeah, right. I finally caught myself. I realized I'm buying into the frame of,
yes,
which it was his default mechanism, which kind of a computer term, I guess, which is that it can't be done at first. But here's what he did. He was actually quite a brilliant guy and a fantastic technician. His initial response was it can't be done, but that was his way of giving himself time to kind of figure it out, because he always came through and, you know, saved my vegetarian, vegan bacon many, many, many times. So what I realized was when he does that, just let him go. Let him have that.
Let him go.
And when I'd say, you know, here's what's broken. Can you ready? No, that can't be done. And okay. Yeah, I just kind of waited, and I could, you know, the wheels were turning, but here's what I could do. Right? And so when we have people in our lives who have a certain default mode, and we all have them, by the way, just some are different than others. Some people go into panic mode. Some people go into no, it can't be done mode. Some people go into anger mode. Some people go into helpless mode. Some people go into understand where it is and what they're doing. I had another person who, when giving advice, and it's when it was proper to give advice, this person would usually respond with, I don't think I'd feel comfortable doing that. And it would frustrate me because, you know, she had asked me for advice and I had suggested, and then she'd say no. So what I realized was, again, that was just her default mode. And so what I'd start doing is when I'd give her a piece of advice, I'd immediately follow that with, but you know what, just kind of think about it and let that kind of, you know, germinate in your mind a while. Don't take action on it yet. Just kind of play it out in your mind a little bit and see what you come up with.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then she would, you know, after a while do it if it was appropriate to do. Sometimes she wouldn't, but sometimes she would, and it worked out. But then it was kind of her doing it on her terms, and which is how it should be anyway.
I love in the first instance, in your first example of your PC guy, that was a great example of setting a totally different frame by saying nothing.
Ah, right.
I mean, and sometimes that's an exceptional thing, to just say nothing, and just be present. Just
be present.
Listen and just say, not in a threatening way, like, you know. But that's exceptional because you stopped. You kind of let the action just stop itself.
Yeah.
I love it.
And again, this comes from listening to others, which was our second secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your phrase, and we talked about this on the podcast this week, but I just love it. It's become one of my all-time favorite phrases, which you came up with, which is listen with the back of your neck. And I love that, because what it says is that you're not just listening with your ears, which is really hearing, which is more physical as opposed to listening, but you're listening with your entire posture, which could be physical in terms of, or it could be really the back of your neck. You're listening with your essence, with your humanity.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you learn more. You simply learn more. And this other person knows you're learning more and that you care enough to really listen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and you're listening not simply to the words the person is saying, but you're also listening to what they're not saying. And also just to who's behind the words. We talk about our fifth secret. Oh my gosh, we're telling secrets. This is very dangerous, isn't it? The fifth secret is to let go of having to be right. And one thing I like to say about that is the thing about being right in a dispute is that there are levels of rightness and then layers of rightness. Sometimes you might be right about a specific point, but that may not be the point. Or say it even better, there may be another point, a larger point that you're missing, that you're not seeing. And that's why listening with the back of your neck is so important, because it isn't just listening in order to be gracious and let the other person go. It's listening with the assumption that there may be something I haven't caught on to yet. There probably is. There always is.
And that's part of letting go of having to be right. Because again, It doesn't mean you don't desire to be right, that you don't want to be right, that you don't prefer to be right.
And you might be right.
And you might be right. And you're going to make your point, and you're going to, what it happens to be.
Right.
It means you're losing the attachment
Yeah.
to having to be right at all costs, even if you're not right. And and so much of what we've seen in politics and the dialogue, if you will, I'm doing a lot of air quotes today. I don't even like
yes.
air quotes.
I'll just do air apostrophes while you're doing it.
Oh, I like those. And so when you see people who have taken sides, right? So it does, my mind's made up. Don't confuse me with the facts. Okay.
Yeah.
This is where confirmation bias sets in, where which is just what it says. Anything you hear or read or come across that confirms your already held beliefs or biases, you accept. But if it doesn't, you just ignore. The challenge with that is you can't learn any more than what you already know. And I always love, the quote attributed to Mark Twain. And by the way, Mark Twain, Ben Franklin, Abraham Lincoln, those are people who half the time the quotes attributed to them, they never said. So I always, put air quotes around that too. It sounds very Twainian. And it's where he said, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you're absolutely sure you do know that just ain't so. And when we're too attached to having to be right, we don't allow ourselves to go into learner's mode. You brought up a great point that you don't truly understand a topic or a subject until you can argue it from the other person's side.
Right.
Which doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you can still understand where they're coming from. When you do that, you actually are going to be more. See, the paradox of that principle, of that secret, let go of having to be right, is that you think that's going to make you less influential. No, it makes you more influential. First, you know more. Secondly, the other person knows that they sense that you're not looking to just be right and defeat them, to overcome them, but that you're looking for the truth.
It's like what you said, your words in the Go-Giver Leader, tact is the language of strength. I think this may have come from your dad.
My dad, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great sentence. And it's exactly what you're talking about here in terms of letting go of having to be right. It may sound on the surface like you're taking a weak position. The opposite is actually a position of strength. I was on Twitter the other day, and I happened to notice my good friend Bob Beckel. Bob Beckel, I wrote a book with him. I wrote his life story.
Yes, you did. It was a great book, by the way. A wonder. What was the name of it again? I should be dead. I should be dead. That is a wonderful book if you get a chance to read.
Thank you. It's a terrifying and amazing story. But Bob grew up in an abusive household, lifetime alcoholic, drug addict, and he was like an alcoholic by night and a political operative by day. And it's a story of a Democratic operative. He was did Walter Mondale's presidential campaign.
Right, Mondale in 80.
Dyed in the wool, Democrat, liberal. Okay, I'm watching on Twitter, and Beckel had said something, and he's famous for being outrageous and for just letting anything come out of his mouth that he thinks of. He says he has no filters. He burned them all out with booze. That's what he says. Recovered alcoholic now, recovering. So he had said something about some conservative person. I don't recall what it was. And a few hours later, I saw him go by on the Twitter feed. And he said, a few hours ago, I said blah, blah, blah about this person. Have discovered that when he said that, he didn't mean this. He was referring to this other person. Apologize. I was wrong. Apologies to so-and-so and so-and-so. And it was, my phone almost exploded. What is this? Somebody on Twitter saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You know how rare that is? And how refreshing it is. And so did that make Bob Beckel, that is, less believable and credible and respected? Okay, made him totally more credible. Because when you can show your underbelly, when you can show your vulnerability and say, I may be wrong about that, you are now assuming a position of strength.
Yeah. Oh, what a wonderful story. I love that. Thank you. Okay, this was a very fast 30 minutes. We're always talking to you. Wow. It goes by all too fast. So you know what? We'll come back here. Well, I don't know if you will. I will. Hopefully you will. And say hi. And Lisa Copeland's on here.
Hi, Lisa.
Yep. And she was our guest last week. Of course, she's author of one of my favorite books, Crushing Mediocrity, but also she has another book coming out soon, and love her to death. And there's a bunch of people. I can't really see any, but I can only see 4 people. I'm gonna have to learn how to do this so I can see everyone. But anyway, I'll come back here. Maybe you will, John, too, and just say hi to everybody and answer questions that people have. Do look forward to seeing everyone next week. In the meantime, on behalf of John David Mann, my awesome great friend and brother and co-author of the Go Giver series, including our most recent The Go Giver Influencer, which you can find out more about and get the first 2 chapters at thegogiver.com. I'm Bob Burg, wishing you an awesome day and a fantastic, fantastic week.